Yeah, well, this is a perfect bridge to our topic today, which is the cultural differences, and like specifically like how different countries think about design. And you stumbled upon this tweet, which I'll share screens, which is pretty interesting. But why don't you give a read of it, and then I'll share my screen in the background.
So this is, I mean, I think it'll be really interesting to speak to get her on the podcast. I think her name is, it's Mika, but her Twitter handle is Paprika. And she was giving like a comparison between essentially Japanese design and or a Japanese YouTuber who was presenting their YouTube channel in English and in Japanese, and the English version, like the thumbnails and the way it's presented, is kind of the stereotype that we have in the West of Japanese design. This serene, peaceful, simplistic, minimalist design. It's very presentable, like which I've always thought, oh, that's Japanese design. But then when she compared it with the Japanese version, with like the translation, it's much more visually vibrant, almost chaotic. There's a lot more smiling going on. When in the Japanese, it seems to be very solemn or sort of like professional looking. So it just made me think, like, is there a thing with Japanese design where they have an international persona of how they want to project themselves, and then they have a persona for their actual local audiences? And for that was kind of like, so it's not just about translation. It's much more detailed than that. It's like there's a whole thing of how a culture wants themselves to be perceived internationally, which I found really interesting. This is what Marie Kondo's, who's a YouTube channel about organization, I guess. I'm not really familiar with her, but she's quite obviously well known. But I found that weird, of like, and then the Twitter thread goes on, and you see folks pointing out the differences between, say, Japanese design and, say, European or West American design. So you got the gas station example that was posted out on Twitter, where the petrol station, gas station, there's just the pump, maybe a payment mechanism there. But then the Japanese one is like 100 different options going on at the same time. Like,
I'm just curious why so many options for the Japanese one. Like, it seems like a bad experience because like there's so much going on, and like if you're a gas station, you just want people to like swipe their card, get the gas, have it, then put it back on and leave. So there's color codings. Like, I'd love to know why one of the gas handles is green, one's red, one's yellow. And then in terms of what we're looking at, there's literally text everywhere on the entire gas station.
The thing is, with these kind of UI or these kind of experiences, they've been designed with Western characters in mind. And so maybe the Japanese written language is so pictorial that this flow doesn't really pander to like the way the language works. And also, I mean, again, this is another stereotype we have, that Japan is like one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. But maybe the payment mechanisms there, they have different ones. Maybe the banking system isn't as fluid as it is. Like, you can go to almost any ATM, regardless of the bank, and you could use it like in the UK and the US. But maybe that's not the case there. So there's all these other sort of hoops you have to jump through. And there may be some sort of legacy technology that this stuff is built up on. This is why having like I think her name's Mika, like having her on a podcast to kind of explain maybe the history of.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Design Huddle. The opinions expressed are solely our own and do not express the views or opinions of our employer.